Hello, and welcome to Autism Network Scotland's new vlog, In Conversation with Neil. Today, we're having a conversation with Marion McLaughlin, who is the one-stop shop coordinator for the AAAs in Aberdeen. Today's conversation will centre around school, communication, and socialising. Good afternoon, Marion.
Hello.
Before we begin then, can I just ask you to tell us a bit more about yourself and exactly what you do for the AAAs and any other work you do?
There's Scottish Women's Autism Network, which was set up by Dr. Catriona Stewart, who is an autistic woman, partly so that autistic women could socialise together. And then there's the AAAs, the charity that I work for. And I volunteer for the Scottish Women's Autism Network as well. I work for the AAAs, and that whenever the AAA started, it's grown and developed into social groups for autistic people. So we've got various different interest-led groups that autistic folks can come along and socialise with each other. There's no non-autistic people in the groups, so we can do the socialising in the way that we're comfortable with. We can interrupt each other and know that we're not trying to steal each other's thunder. We can share personal stories to empathise, that kind of thing, and nobody thinks that we're being rude for doing that sort of thing. And it's the same at the Scottish Women's Autism Network meetups. I run the meetups in Aberdeen, and it's all just allowing people to socialise in a naturally autistic way and feel validated in doing that. So yes, there's only two autistic-led charities, and they're both about socialising. Really, you know, at the heart of them, at the core, it's bringing autistic people together so they can have a social life. They can have that social connection.
But one of the ideas I've always had is to allow autistic kids who want to be in mainstream schools to be in mainstream schools, and surely we could use information technology to do that, and classes online. You know, so the teacher, as a lot of universities do, they record their lectures because they understand that students want to go back to a lecture and delve back into it to supplement the notes they've taken. Yeah. Do you think that's something it's a lesson we could learn and say, look, we could be making better use of IT?
Oh, I think we could definitely be making better use of IT. I think I was quite impressed at how some of the schools had responded and been able to do a lot of things on tech really quite quickly. And some other schools took a while longer to get used to it as well. I know some autistic students who have been absolutely desperate to go back, get back into the classroom, play with their friends, sort of be face to face. And for some autistic students, just the thought of going back into a school is really, really difficult. So I think for those students who don't want to go back into a school, I think the question that we really need to be asking is why? What about the school is inaccessible for you? Because it's one thing whenever you have to go in day after day after day after day, but then going in after you've had 5 months off and you've not been in is far, far harder, especially if you're feeling a lot more vulnerable. And a lot of autistic people have said to us that they're presenting more autistically. So they're stimming a bit more, they're giving less eye contact, their sentence structure is sometimes a little bit more different than it maybe would have been otherwise. They're not filtering as much as they would have done. So there's the concern about whether or not they would be accepted, and then going into the sensory environment. So what are the things that we could do to make schools more accessible for autistic students in the first place? And sometimes that could be looking at the environment and making sure that the environment is appropriate. And it could be looking at the ethos of the school. Is inclusion actually embedded in the ethos? You know, are students with any kind of disability thought about at each kind of stage? You know, students with any kind of disability should be the first ones that you think about whenever you're thinking about a school trip. Is everybody going to manage this school trip? The way that we get there, is that going to be appropriate for everyone?
Yeah, I've just always thought that schools, they're happy to make reasonable adjustments, but actually when you come up with an innovative idea, they're often not approachable to it, because I tried to suggest it to a school once and they were just, it was a flat no, because I don't think they understood or even thought how it would be possible. And to say, you know, kids, autistic people can struggle in the classroom with too much noise, with bright lights, with sound, with noise, with sensory issues, but they enjoy their time in the playground and they enjoy having the lunch with their friends and all these things. Why can't you have a soft room? You know, why can't the teacher record the class session so the autistic person can be in school, and if he wants to, he can be in the classroom. If he doesn't want to, he can be in a soft room or a separate room, you know, where he can be watching it on a laptop and still taking part in the class. Modern technology is good enough. Zoom, you can do a thing to raise your hand to ask a question. You know, they can be a full interactive part of a class without being in the physical environment that's making it impossible for them to be there.
Well, I would ask, why can't we have the soft area in the classroom? Why can't we have, you know, a part of the classroom
because
that's
neurotypicals will want to play on it, and they'll want to sit on a sofa, and they'll want to put their feet up. I mean, the issue for me was a lot of the sensory issues can come from a lot of kids in a room, and especially with noise. You know what kids are like in the classroom. You know, you probably spend most of your time, well, certainly my mum always said as in secondary school, she spent the majority of her time telling people to be quiet. You know, fortunately later in life it wasn't like that because she was at private school, so all the parents were paying a lot of money to have their kids there, and the kids understood that you were quiet during lesson time. You know, but
it's like, does the classroom have to be noisy? Does it always have to be? And I know that there's a lot of sort of collegiate work that goes on in classrooms where you want a lot of teamwork and things, but does it always have to be really noisy? And do the kids understand why a lot of noise could be difficult for somebody who's autistic as well? What are the other things that the autistic student could do? Could the autistic student wear ear defenders? And if they don't want to wear ear defenders, how about silicone plugs in their ears that you would wear whenever you go swimming? You know, not necessarily all the time, but even for some of the time. Could they listen to music? Could they listen to a white noise machine? And if they do have to go to another room, do they have to go to that other room by themselves? Could they take some peers with them? Are there other autistic students in the school who would benefit from a smaller classroom too? Some autistic students might prefer to be in a room by themselves. But I think one of the things that I've definitely learned from working at the AAAs and volunteering with Swan is that most autistic people want peers around them. They want people who understand where they're coming from. So can they create an environment within the school where a bunch of autistic people could go? Could they have an autistic lunch club? Could they have a chess club for the autistic students? Could they have a football club for the autistic students, or a reading group for the autistic students?
I mean, I'd also like to see some more mentoring within schools. So, you know, not necessarily an older student, probably an older student, because you need that certain, you know, if somebody's a first year, if they're just starting their teenage years and they're just starting senior one, they really want somebody who's knowledgeable about the school, has been there for a few years, knows where all the rooms are, knows where the toilets are, knows where the lunchroom is, all these things. And do it as a development. And maybe, I think you'd have to get together, I don't know, maybe the Prince's Trust or something, with a youth organisation, that anybody who would mentor an autistic student, ideally probably neurotypical, so they could try and help them with some of the communication barriers and start helping them to be able to engage better with non-autistic people. Because so much time at the time I worry that people go, oh, we get an autistic lunch club and it's run by an autistic teacher and it's full of autistic people, and that's not solving the problem. That's just isolating communities even further, because all the autistics are sitting together and all neurotypicals are sitting together and never the twain shall meet, sort of thing. That's my work. I mean, I'm not saying that an autistic lunch club's a bad idea. I'm just saying, how do we make sure that the integration happens? And I wondered about a sort of mentoring scheme.
There has to be a lot of integration as well, but I think that sometimes it's really nice to be in a group of just people who are autistic, and sometimes it's really nice to be in a mixed group as well. And so I think we need to have opportunities for both of those things. I mean, when I was in high school, I was part of the chess club, and I loved going to chess club, and I can guarantee that pretty much most of the autistic students in the school probably went there too, even though probably none of us were diagnosed at the time. And it was a really nice way to sort of socialize. And I think one thing about a lot of autistic people that I know is that sometimes whenever we're socialising, it's good to be doing something at the same time. So I think having a variety of out-of-class options and having maybe some of them autistic only and some of them not, so then people have that choice, that option to go between them, would be useful. I wouldn't like to see, oh well, the autistic people have to go here and the non-autistic people have to go there. We need to have some crossover between the communities as well, because the reality is autistic people and non-autistic people do live side by side a lot of the time, and we need to get that understanding. And I think what I would really like to see is, I completely agree, I would love to see a mentoring program. I would like to see older autistic students mentoring younger autistic students, but I would also like to see autistic students mentoring non-autistic students so that they could understand what autistic social skills are. Because autistic social skills are generally looked at in a different way. So things like, you and I have interrupted each other quite a bit, and that's fine. And I know you're not stealing my thunder, you know I'm not stealing yours. We've shared personal stories to empathize with each other. And again, at no point have I thought you were stealing my thunder, and you've never thought that I was stealing yours, as far as I can tell either. So understanding how autistic, because we're both autistic and we understand that about each other. And it's nice because there's that sharing. It's good, it creates a connection between people, doesn't it? And I think understanding autistic social skills as well for non-autistic students is just as important as autistic students understanding non-autistic social skills too. So we've got to understand where each other comes from, because if an autistic person does something that comes across as rude to other people, we need to know about that. We need to understand why that's happening. But also, if we're genuinely not trying to be rude, the other people need to understand that that's also the case. I mean, there are times that I have been rude to people on complete purpose, and I don't take them back. And I don't like the idea that people that, oh, well, she was just being autistic, so she probably didn't mean it. No, at times I've been rude and I've meant it, you know. So I think that there needs to be that understanding between those communities. And I think that whenever you get those two communities coming together, it can be really lovely. I mean, I'm married to somebody who's non-autistic, and it's brilliant. I have lots of friends who are non-autistic, and those friendships are brilliant too. And I have some autistic friends, and those friendships are brilliant. They're brilliant in very different ways a lot of the time. And I value both of those kinds of friendships. I value what I get from my autistic friends, and I value what I get from the non-autistic ones too. So we definitely do need to see some crossover between them. But in thinking back to whenever I was in school, I didn't really know many people who were like me, and it was really difficult to socialize in a way that I was comfortable with, in a way that I understood. And knowing that I could go to a group where other people would socialize in the same way that I do would have been just invaluable. And I would have still wanted to go, because I was in the chess group, but I was also in the dance group. And there weren't as many, probably not as many autistic students in the dance group as there were in the chess group, but I still wanted to go to dance. I still wanted to do that. So having those different opportunities to have the crossover between the non-autistic and the autistic students, but also having those the opportunities to socialize with your peers and be really comfortable not having to mask, I think would be quite beneficial too.
Thank you for taking the time to speak to me this afternoon, Marion. I hope it has been as enjoyable for you as it has for me.
Really enjoyed talking to you today. This has been enormous fun. And yeah, I hope we get to do this again, actually.
Thank you and goodbye.
So thank you again.